The laughter hit before the heat. It rolled across the stone hall like a physical thing, sharp and cruel, bouncing off banners and polished metal. Elias felt it press against his spine as he stood alone in the center circle, the air shimmering with alien suns filtering through the high arches. He did not look up at first. His helmet was too heavy for that. The armor had always been heavy, not in weight but in meaning. Dark, layered plates wrapped his body, uneven and scarred, nothing like the elegant silver worn by the royal guard. It looked old, ugly, human. Someone hissed, "Is he wearing scrap?" Another voice laughed louder. Did they dig him out of a museum? Elias closed his eyes. He had crossed 3 systems to stand here. He had bled for the treaty that brought him to this hall, and still he was a joke. Across from him stood Princess Lyra. She was exactly as the stories said. Tall, steady, impossible to ignore. Her silver armor gleamed like frozen starlight, every edge ornate, every plate crafted to perfection. Long blonde hair spilled down her back in soft waves, caught between her pauldrons. Her blue eyes watched him without blinking. Not mocking, not smiling. Just cold. The alien court waited for her command. The soldiers behind her stood in a perfect line, silver blades grounded, their faces blurred by distance and discipline. This was her world. He was the stain in it. "State your name," Lyra said. Her voice was calm, controlled, too controlled. "Elias Ward," he replied. A pause followed, long enough to sting. "And your rank?" she asked. He hesitated. That was when the whispers returned, thicker now, amused. They knew. Humans had no ranks worth respecting here. No noble blood, no ancient houses. "I have none," Elias said. "Not anymore." A noble scoffed from the balcony. "Then why is he here?" Lyra's gaze sharpened. "Why are you here, Elias Ward?" He lifted his head then. For a moment the room shifted, not because of his face but because of his eyes. They were tired, not weak, not afraid, just worn down by years that had never been kind. "I was invited," he said quietly, "to prove myself." Another laugh burst out, louder than the rest. "Prove what?" someone shouted. "That humans still play dress-up." Elias felt something snap inside his chest. Not anger, resolve. He reached up, fingers brushing the seal at his collar. Lyra noticed the movement, her eyes narrowed. "Stop," she said. He didn't. The helmet came free with a soft hiss of pressure. Elias lowered it to the stone floor and stepped back. His hair was dark, cut short, streaked with gray that didn't belong to his age. A thin scar traced his jaw. The laughter dipped, uncertain now. Still someone muttered, "That's it." Elias swallowed. He had sworn never to do this again. Not here, not in front of her. But they had already decided what he was. He unlatched the first plate. Metal fell away with a dull clang, then another, then another. Gasps spread through the hall as he stripped the armor piece by piece, not rushed, not dramatic, just honest. Each plate hit the floor like punctuation to an unspoken sentence. Lyra took a step forward before she realized she had moved. Beneath the armor, Elias was not fragile. His body was a map of survival, scars layered over scars, burns that no medtech could erase. Symbols etched into his skin in old human script, marks of oaths no alien world remembered. One noble whispered, "Those are battle marks." Another voice trembled, "That armor wasn't decorative." Elias stood bare of protection now, wearing only the thin underlayer. Vulnerable, exposed. Unashamed. "This armor," he said, meeting Lyra's gaze, "was never meant to impress you." The room had gone silent. "I wore it so I wouldn't forget who I was," he continued, "and so the things I fought would remember." Lyra's breath caught. She did not blink, she did not speak. For the first time since entering the hall, Elias saw something crack through her composure. Not fear. Recognition. The silence stretched until it hurt. Somewhere deep in the palace a bell rang, not planned, not ceremonial. A warning. Lyra finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Who did this to you?" Ilias looked down at the armor scattered at his feet. Then back at her. "Everyone," he said. And for the first time in her life, the alien princess stopped breathing. The hall did not erupt. That was the strangest part. No shouts, no orders, no blades drawn. Only silence, thick and heavy, pressing down on every soul present. Even the banners seemed to hang still, as if the air itself was afraid to move. Princess Lyra was the first to recover her breath. She straightened slowly, her silver armor catching the light as she did, but something in her face had changed. The cold certainty was gone. In its place was caution and curiosity. "Everyone," she repeated softly. The word echoed. Ilias did not move. He stood bare before the court, hands relaxed at his sides as if he had nothing left to hide. His pulse hammered in his ears. He had crossed the point of no return. A noblewoman finally broke the silence with a scoff. "Scars prove nothing. Even animals survive wounds." Ilias did not look at her. Lyra did. The princess turned her head just enough for the noblewoman to freeze mid-breath. No words were spoken. None were needed. The court learned something in that moment. Lyra faced Ilias again. "You were invited to demonstrate," she said, "not to undress in my hall." A few nervous chuckles followed. Ilias nodded. "Then let me demonstrate." He bent and picked up one final piece from the floor. Not armors. A blade. It was plain, short, human-made. The metal was dull, marked by countless sharpenings. It looked fragile next to the alien steel carried by the guards. Someone laughed again, weak this time. "That thing wouldn't cut silk," a soldier muttered. Lyra raised a hand. The laughter died instantly. "What is that?" she asked. "My oath," Ilias said. He held the blade flat across his palms, not offering it, not threatening, just showing it. Lyra hesitated, then she stepped closer. The soldiers behind her stiffened, grips tightening on their swords. She ignored them. Her boots clicked against the stone, each step slow, deliberate. Up close, Ilias could see details he had missed before. A faint scar beneath her eye, calloused fingers inside polished gauntlets. She was no ceremonial princess. She had earned her armor. Her eyes flicked to his scars, then to the blade. "You challenge someone with this?" she asked. "No," Ilias replied. "I survive with it." She studied him for a long moment. Then she turned sharply. "Captain Rin." A tall soldier stepped forward from the line, his armor as flawless as the rest. He saluted. "Test him," Lyra ordered. The court gasped. Captain Rin blinked. "My princess." "Not to kill," she said, "to understand." Rin hesitated only a second before drawing his sword. It hummed faintly with alien energy, the edge glowing pale blue. He took his stance, perfect and practiced. Ilias did not raise his blade. That confused them more than anything. "Defend yourself," Rin said, uneasy. Ilias exhaled slowly. Then he moved. It was not fast. It was precise. He stepped inside the reach of Rin's sword before the captain could adjust, his body turning just enough to let the glowing blade skim past skin without cutting. Ilias' hand snapped out, striking the joint beneath Rin's elbow. Metal rang. The sword fell. Before anyone could react, Ilias twisted, hooked Rin's knee, and guided the much larger man to the ground with controlled force. No brutality, no flair. Just inevitability. Ilias stepped back. Rin lay on the stone, stunned but unharmed. The hall exploded into noise. No energy assist. That was impossible. He didn't even strike. Lyra stared. Her heart was racing now, not with fear, but with something far more dangerous. Excitement, understanding. Ilias finally lifted his blade, holding it loosely. "Armor teaches confidence," he said. "Pain teaches truth." The words struck harder than any blow. Lyra raised her hand again, silencing the hall. Enough, she said. She looked at Elias not as an outsider now, but as a question she had never thought to ask. You were mocked, she said, and still you chose restraint. Elias met her gaze. Violence is easy, control is expensive. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she did something no one expected. She removed her helmet. Her blonde hair fell free, framing her face. The crowd gasped louder than before. No ruler had ever bared themselves in this hall. Lyra held his gaze steadily. You came here wearing scars and lies, she said. Now you stand unarmored. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Tell me the truth, Elias Ward, she said. What are you really hiding? Elias tightened his grip on the blade. Because the truth was worse than the scars. And if he spoke it, this fragile moment would shatter. Behind them, unseen by most, the palace alarm sigil began to glow. Something was coming, and it was not part of the ceremony. The first alarm barely had time to echo before the hall trembled. Stone floors vibrated, banners flicked like startled birds, and the alien court froze. The soldiers' eyes darted toward the balcony entrances, hands tightening on polished hilts. Even Lyra's calm composure wavered for a fraction, her blue eyes scanning the upper halls. Elias' senses sharpened instantly. His blade, still in his hands, felt heavier than before, not from weight but from anticipation. He could feel the shift before it arrived, a presence that didn't belong, not human, not alien, not anything the court had catalogued. A shadow tore through the upper balcony. It was fast, fluid, almost invisible, but the faint shimmer of dark energy betrayed it. Protect the princess, someone shouted. The soldiers surged forward, silver blades raised, armor reflecting the starlight. But Elias didn't move with them. He stepped to the side, blade loose, breathing measured. There was no panic in him, only observation. The shadow hit the floor. It moved like a predator, limbs bending in impossible ways, eyes glowing faint red beneath a malformed crest. It struck a guard in a single, impossible motion. The man was thrown against the wall, unconscious but alive. Gasps filled the hall, screams erupted. Lyra's hand hovered near her sword, but she didn't draw it. Her gaze held Elias wide-eyed. Go, she commanded. Stop it. Elias didn't hesitate. He stepped forward into the open, directly in the shadow's path. The alien paused, seemingly confused by him. Unlike the soldiers, he didn't wield his strength through raw force. His stance was relaxed, almost casual. Yet every scar on his body, every line etched from years of survival, radiated a dangerous confidence. The shadow lunged. Elias sidestepped. His movement was minimal. His blade flicked, catching the creature across the shoulder. A hiss erupted as energy seared the metal edge, but it held. The shadow spun, claws slicing the air where he had been, missing by inches. Your armor doesn't protect you, a voice yelled from the balcony, another noble trembling. Elias didn't answer. He parried, twisted, and moved as though the battle had been rehearsed for years he hadn't actually lived through. Each strike was precise, each dodge flawless. He wasn't fast, he was inevitability. Lyra's breath caught. She had seen combat, yes, but nothing like this. Humans weren't supposed to survive in this way. They weren't supposed to be this. The shadow roared, a sound that made the stone tremble, and launched a sweeping attack. Elias leaned into it, blade catching a claw, sending sparks arcing across the floor. In that moment, the hall went silent again. Every soldier, every noble, even the balcony's guards froze. He looked at Lyra. No hesitation, no fear, just raw, unshakable presence. And then he struck, not to kill, but to disarm. The shadow's claw caught the stone edge, cracking it, and Elias' human blade connected with the joint of its limb. The creature stumbled. Lyra stepped forward, unable to stop herself. Elias. The creature's red eyes turned toward her. A moment of panic. Then Elias shifted, body coiled like a spring, and intercepted the shadow again. One human against a predator designed for killing. One scarred man, unarmored, standing between the princess and annihilation. And in that instant, something clicked in Lyra. It wasn't the armor he wore or had worn. It wasn't the blade or the scars or even his calm. It was him. The human spirit, honed and battered, standing unwavering when everyone else faltered. The shadow recoiled, miscalculating for the first time. Ilia's strike was merciless, precise, not cruel but undeniable. The creature toppled, claws skidding across the stone, energy sparks trailing like fireflies. The hall held its collective breath. And then Ilias turned. He didn't gloat, he didn't raise his blade. He simply nodded at Lyra, a small gesture, almost invisible, yet filled with weight. She didn't blink, she couldn't. The room had stopped existing around them. All she could feel was the force of him. Someone whispered behind her, It's just one man." Lyra's eyes never left Ilia's. She realized she couldn't deny it anymore. She had judged him at first glance, mocked his armor, dismissed him as human, fragile. And now, he had rewritten every assumption she had ever made about strength. The shadow convulsed, struggling to rise again. Ilias approached, blade low, measured. With one fluid motion, he disarmed the creature completely, pressing it to the ground without harming it further. The hall exhaled collectively. Lyra stepped closer, her voice trembling with awe. I've never." Ilias lowered his blade. "Never what?" he asked softly. "Seen someone like you." The words hung in the air. And far above, unnoticed by most, the palace alarm continued to hum, faint but insistent. Because this was only the beginning. Something else was coming, something that even Ilias couldn't yet predict. And Lyra realized, with a shiver of both fear and fascination, that she wanted him to stand there, unarmored and unbroken, when it did. The princess and the human stared at each other. One war had already begun. Another, far worse, was waiting just beyond the doors. The court, meanwhile, whispered and gawked. And no one, not even the silver-armored soldiers, could take their eyes off Ilia's ward. Not now, not ever. The hall had quieted to a tense hum. Guards shifted nervously, eyes darting toward the doors and shadowed balconies. Yet despite the lingering fear of the fallen predator, all attention remained on Ilias. Bare, scarred, unwavering. Princess Lyra's heartbeat hadn't slowed. She could feel it echoing in her chest as she watched him move, every motion controlled, precise. She had seen warriors before, thousands perhaps, but none had ever carried this presence, the kind that made silence feel alive. Ilias, sensing the temporary lull, allowed himself a small glance at her. "Are you hurt?" he asked. His voice was calm, human, soft, almost intimate in a room of tension. Lyra shook her head, though her hands twitched near the hilt of her sword. She realized suddenly how exposed she felt, watching this human stand before her, unarmored yet untouchable. She wanted to be angry for the audacity of it, but she couldn't. Before she could speak again, a deep rumble shook the stone floor. Not from outside, this time from within the palace walls. The doors to the inner corridors burst open. Figures moved fast, too fast to be soldiers. Shadowed figures cloaked in dark energy that hummed like electricity. They weren't like the predator before. They were smarter, coordinated, and their eyes glowed with alien calculation. "Back," a soldier shouted, but Ilias didn't flinch. Lyra instinctively moved behind him, yet she couldn't hide the awe in her gaze. She had never realized a human could radiate such calm in the face of certain danger. The cloaked figures advanced. Their weapons were unfamiliar, crystalline, sharp, and crackling with energy. They moved as a single organism, and the hall seemed suddenly smaller, tighter, constricting. Ilias took a step forward, letting the soldiers form a hesitant line behind him. His blade glinted, catching the light. It was small, simple, but it felt heavier than anything in the palace's armory. The first figure lunged. Ilias sidestepped, barely moving, his hands flowing like water over the blade. The strike landed, careful, precise, disarming, not killing, not yet. A lesson, not a massacre. Lyra gasped. "They aren't just attacking," she whispered. "They want something." Ilias glanced at her, or someone. Her breath caught. "Me." He did not answer. Instead, he moved again. Another figure came forward, striking with unnatural speed. Elias deflected, ducked, and used their momentum to flip them to the floor. Every movement was graceful, economical, yet lethal in its simplicity. The soldiers followed him clumsily, trying to imitate his fluidity, but it was hopeless. His skill was not in strength. It was in reading death itself and moving just enough to survive. Lyra noticed a pattern. Each cloaked attacker avoided certain spaces, almost as if they feared stepping near him. Her heart raced. He wasn't just defending her. He was rewriting the battlefield with his presence. Finally, after a tense flurry, the last of the cloaked figures paused. They exchanged glances, then retreated, vanishing into the shadows of the corridors. The hall went still, silence again. Elias' blade lowered slowly, his breathing steady. Not a beat of sweat, not a tremor. Lyra stepped forward. She had never been so close to a human in battle, unarmored, vulnerable, yet untouchable. She felt drawn to him, compelled by something deeper than admiration, something that spoke to the core of her, something primal. "Who are you?" she asked, voice trembling. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked to the fallen cloak, examining it briefly before looking back at her. "A survivor," he said finally, "and someone who keeps promises." Lyra's hands dropped from her sword. She noticed now the way the soldiers looked at him. Fear, yes, but also reverence. Respect that no alien would dare offer lightly. Why didn't you fight them like the others would?" she asked, still struggling to catch her breath. Elias' lips curved slightly, almost a smirk. "Because brute force doesn't protect what's worth saving. Control does, patience does, understanding does." Lyra blinked, stunned. She had trained all her life, seen battles, studied tactics, yet here was a human, stripped bare, teaching lessons she hadn't learned in decades. A faint vibration ran through the floor again. Another warning. Elias' eyes narrowed. "They'll be back, not for you this time." He stopped, his gaze shifted. Something moved in the far shadows of the hall, something that didn't retreat. Lyra's pulse quickened. She realized that for the first time she was seeing beyond the armor, beyond her expectations, into a world she had never imagined. And Elias was standing right at the threshold of it, guiding her, shielding her, redefining every rule she had ever known. Her breath caught. "You're more than human," she whispered, unable to finish the thought. He tilted his head slightly, scanning the hall. "I'm exactly what I have to be," he said quietly, "and right now that's enough." The palace walls creaked, shadows shifted. And Lyra realized the truth. Nothing, not even the most beautiful armor in the galaxy, could match the force of someone unbroken, unarmored, and utterly determined. Something deep inside her shifted. She was no longer the observer. She was a participant, caught in a current she didn't fully understand. And the next threat was already moving through the halls, faster than either of them could see. The palace corridors were suddenly alive with whispers of danger. Shadows twisted along the walls, and every reflective surface, from polished metal to enchanted glass, seemed to flicker with movement. Lyra's heartbeat was loud enough that she could hear it in her ears. Elias led the way, unarmored, blade in hand. Soldiers followed hesitantly behind him, their polished silver gleaming in contrast to his bare, scarred frame. Each step he took seemed to carve a path through the tension, a quiet declaration. "This is mine to face." Lyra could hardly take her eyes off him. Every scar, every movement, every calculated glance spoke volumes she couldn't yet understand. She had never seen a human-wield presence like this, calm, precise, terrifying in its subtlety. A sudden metallic clang echoed from the hall ahead. The cloaked attackers were back, more numerous, faster, and smarter this time. Their eyes glowed crimson, reflecting cold intent. "Form a line," Lyra commanded, surprising even herself. She drew her sword and moved beside Elias, determined not to hide behind him. He didn't glance at her, only nodded once, and together they faced the oncoming threat. The first cloaked figure lunged. Elias sidestepped effortlessly, his blade grazing the attacker's arm and sending sparks of alien energy flying. He didn't slash to kill. He disarmed. He redirected. Every motion was measured, precise, like a deadly dance no one else could follow. Lyra struck next. Her silver blade sang as it cut through the air, but she realized quickly that brute strength wasn't enough here. She faltered, misjudging a strike, and almost stumbled, if not for Elia's swift hand nudging her back into position without touching her armor. "Focus on the rhythm," he said softly, almost to himself. "Not the attack, feel the pause between the strikes." Her eyes widened. Rhythm, timing, precision, not strength. She mirrored his movement, and for the first time they moved in sync, blade to blade, step to step. The hall erupted in chaos around them, but between Elias and her, there was a strange, silent order. Each attacker fell, disarmed or immobilized without a single fatal strike. The soldiers tried to follow, often fumbling, but Elias' presence alone seemed to inspire confidence, caution, and fear in equal measure. Then a shriek, a sound no human throat could make, echoed from above. A shadowed figure dropped from the balcony, larger than the others, cloaked in black energy that twisted and pulsed like liquid. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and every motion radiated deadly intent. Elias stepped forward. His blade caught the dim light. Lyra moved instinctively beside him. The creature lunged. Elias didn't dodge. He didn't parry immediately. Instead, he waited, letting it strike. Then, in a heartbeat, he sidestepped, grabbed its wrist, and with one fluid motion, flipped it onto its back. Sparks and energy flared as the hall shook. Lyra gasped. She had never seen anyone handle a predator like that, without armor, without force, yet entirely unscathed. Elias' eyes met hers. There was no fear, no arrogance, just a raw, unshakable confidence that pierced the chaos around them. "You trust me," he said quietly, though the sound carried across the hall. She swallowed. I do," she whispered. A faint, mocking laugh echoed from the shadows beyond the hall. Lyra's skin prickled. Elias' jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. "Not yet done," he murmured. "They're testing us, learning us." Lyra's heart pounded, but her trust in him had solidified in a way she hadn't anticipated. He was more than a fighter. He was a guide, a protector, and something else she couldn't name yet. The shadowed figure stirred, clawing its way to stand again. Elias didn't raise his blade immediately. He assessed, calculated. Every scar on his body seemed to hum with experience, telling him exactly what to do next. And then, with the precision of a storm, he moved. The creature fell again, and again it struggled, and again it failed. Each time, Elias' strikes were deliberate, sparing life but enforcing authority. Every observer, alien or human, realized this man wasn't just surviving, he dominated without brutality. Lyra stepped closer, instinctively brushing against his shoulder as she raised her blade to join him. The connection was electric, silent yet undeniable. She could feel the warmth of him, the steadiness of him, the unwavering certainty. And she knew, without question, that she had underestimated humans and him. A whisper ran through the hall. "Even the princess is awed." Behind them, the shadowed corridors hummed. The next wave of attackers was waiting, something bigger, something faster. And Elias didn't flinch. Lyra realized then, with a shiver of anticipation, that whatever came next, she would face it with him. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The palace had changed. The battle had changed. And between the shadows and silver, something undeniable had begun to ignite. The corridors beyond the hall were alive with movement. Shadows shifted, whispering, sliding along walls, and the distant hum of energy grew louder. Lyra followed Elias, every step in sync with his measured pace. Soldiers stumbled behind them, unsure, exhausted, their silver armor dented and scratched from previous skirmishes. Elias didn't speak. He didn't need to. Every scar on his body, every careful motion told its own story. He moved like a man who had faced impossible odds his entire life and survived. Lyra found herself matching him instinctively, blade raised, eyes sharp, heart racing not from fear but from anticipation. A sudden flicker of red light caught her eye. Ahead, a massive chamber opened, circular, with a high dome and walls inscribed with alien glyphs that pulsed faintly. The air smelled of ozone and old stone, and a chill ran down her spine. Something waited there, she could feel it. Elias paused at the entrance, scanning the room. Lyra caught his eye. His gaze was calm, steady, unflinching. She had never seen anyone like him. Not a single hesitation, not a flicker of fear. Only calculation, only readiness. "This is it," he said quietly. "The heart of their operation, the core of the attack." The first shadow moved then. Larger than the others, its body rippling with dark energy, eyes glowing like twin suns. It lunged from the far side of the chamber. Elias stepped forward, blade loose in his hand, bare of armor, and met it head-on. Lyra followed immediately. She raised her sword, striking with precision, trying to keep pace. But she was human, or alien, technically, but not trained in the brutal, instinctive perfection that Elias wielded. Still, she fought, inspired, feeling her confidence grow with every move she mirrored from him. The shadow was fast, impossibly fast, its claws slicing through the air, tearing at stone and metal alike. Soldiers tried to intervene, but even their combined force was nothing compared to the predator's unnatural speed. Elias didn't strike immediately. He waited, letting it attack, reading its rhythm, understanding its patterns. Then, in a blur of movement, he disarmed it, twisting its momentum against it. Sparks and energy flared as the creature hit the floor, struggling to rise. Lyra's eyes widened. She realized he wasn't just fighting, it was a dance. Every move calculated, every action deliberate. He spared the creature yet controlled it completely, teaching the hall the language of survival without brutality. The shadow convulsed, clawing at Elias, but he moved with a grace that defied expectation. Step, parry, twist, each motion was precise, predictable only to him. He struck the creature's weak points, yet never killed it outright. Control, not destruction. Lyra felt her chest tighten. She had trained her entire life to command armies, to wield power and authority, yet she had never seen strength wielded like this. Raw, human, and unstoppable. Elias glanced at her briefly, a small nod, and she understood. This wasn't a battle she could win alone. She had to trust him, all of him. The shadow staggered, then froze. Something shifted. A new presence entered the chamber, tall, armored, radiating authority, its energy crackling like lightning across the stone floor. The aliens had a leader here, and even the shadows hesitated before it. Elias didn't flinch. He squared his shoulders. Lyra realized that for the first time she saw fear in the soldiers behind them, but not in him. He was unarmored, scarred, human, and utterly untouchable. The leader's voice echoed through the chamber, alien and distorted, yet understandable. "You should not be here, human. You do not belong." Elias' jaw tightened. "I belong wherever I'm needed." The words were simple. They carried weight, they carried defiance, they carried truth. Lyra's breath caught. She had underestimated humans. She had underestimated him. And now, standing beside him, she understood something that no royal education or ancient code could teach. Courage wasn't measured by armor. It wasn't measured by rank or blood. It was measured by the refusal to bow when all odds were against you. The shadow stirred, the leader advanced, and the chamber trembled with anticipation. Elias raised his blade. Lyra mirrored him, though she knew the difference between them. One was unarmored, scarred, human. The other was a princess, trained, capable, but untested in the crucible he had already endured. And in that moment, standing together, facing the storm that approached, Lyra realized something she couldn't deny. She trusted him completely, and perhaps more dangerously, she was beginning to believe in him. The chamber seemed to hold its breath. The next move would define not just the battle, but everything they were about to face. The shadow lunged, the leader raised a hand. And Elias Ward smiled, bare, unbroken, unarmored, ready for what no one else could survive. The chamber exploded into motion. The shadow surged forward, faster than thought, claws slicing through the air like streaks of dark lightning. The alien leader advanced, armor humming with power that could crush stone with a touch. Soldiers fell back, shielding themselves, but Elias did not flinch. Lyra watched, breath caught, as he moved. Every motion was deliberate, fluid, a choreography of instinct and experience. He wasn't just fighting, he was dictating the battlefield, shaping it with his presence. Unarmored, scarred, human, and yet untouchable. The shadow struck first. Elias sidestepped, just enough. The predator's energy crackled harmlessly against the stone. Elias' blade flicked once, then again, guiding the creature off balance without harming it. Lyra gasped. How is he doing this? She had trained all her life, seen dozens of battles, yet nothing could have prepared her for this. Every strike, every feint, every shift of weight was perfect. The leader raised a hand, sending a wave of energy toward Elias. He leaned into it, letting it pass, countering in a single movement that disarmed the alien and sent it crashing to the floor. The chamber shook. Lyra's own blade rose, instinctively mirroring his movements. She was slower, less precise, but Elias guided her with subtle gestures, his presence alone a silent instruction. Together, they became a single force, human and princess united against impossible odds. The shadow lunged again, eyes glowing red, faster, smarter. Elias met it midair, catching it by the wrist and spinning, redirecting its momentum. Sparks flew. The predator hit the ground hard, but he did not kill. He immobilized, he controlled. Lyra's chest heaved. She could feel the power emanating from him. Not magic, not alien tech, but human will, honed to perfection by pain, survival, and unyielding resolve. And then he spoke. Enough, Elias said. The word was soft, almost casual, but it carried authority that resonated through the hall. The shadow froze, the leader faltered, soldiers straightened, sensing the shift. Even Lyra felt it. He advanced, step by step, blade low, unarmored, every scar and sinew a testament to countless battles survived. I've come here for one reason, he said, to protect what matters. The leader's eyes narrowed. And what is that, human? Elias smiled faintly. Life, honor, and the truth no armor can hide. In a blur, he moved, faster than anyone could anticipate. The blade struck not to kill, but to speak. Every hit, every touch of metal against metal, every precise redirection of the shadow's energy was a sentence, a message. I am not what you think, I am more. The shadow stumbled. The leader fell back. The palace seemed to hold its breath. Lyra watched, frozen, as the man she had once mocked as fragile now dominated the battlefield without armor, without pretense. And then it happened. Elias disarmed the shadow completely. It collapsed powerless. The alien leader froze, staring at him as though seeing a myth made flesh. Lyra stepped forward, awestruck, heart pounding. He turned toward her. The moment was silent, yet louder than any roar of battle. His eyes met hers. Blue to blue, human to alien, and in them she saw something she had never imagined. Strength beyond expectation, courage beyond reason, and a heart fierce enough to defy the universe itself. You see now, he said quietly, blade lowered. Armor doesn't make a warrior, will does, and honor that cannot be taken. Lyra's lips parted, she could not speak. Her mind reeled, trying to process what she had witnessed. The court, the soldiers, even the alien leader, they all stared, shaken to the core. For the first time, the alien princess felt entirely unarmed. Not because of what she wore, but because Elias' ward, bare, scarred, human, had rewritten everything she thought she knew. A hush fell over the chamber. No one dared move. No one dared breathe too loudly. Even the shadows seemed to hesitate, unsure if they should continue. Lyra stepped closer. Her voice was soft, trembling with awe and something deeper. You didn't need armor. Elias' faint smile held both pride and relief. I never did. And in that instant, something unspoken passed between them. Respect, understanding, and perhaps the first flicker of something neither had expected, connection. The hall erupted behind them, whispers and awe spreading like wildfire. But Lyra didn't move from his side. She didn't need to. He had already spoken in a language older than steel, louder than energy, and sharper than any sword. A human, unarmored, could be unstoppable. And even a princess, no matter how brilliant or armored, could not look away. The predators were gone, the palace was silent, but in the hearts of everyone present, one truth remained. Elias' ward had spoken, and the world would never forget.